In this video, we'll learn how to edit Ilford FP4 in Negative Lab Pro and Photoshop. Let's begin. So to start off here, we have our lovely image. We need to crop into this so we can use Negative Lab Pro. We also need to white balance, so let's do that first. So to pull up the white balance tool in Lightroom, we hit the W key and we click on the film border. Boom, boom, not too much difference there because I may have white balanced the actual camera. But next, we need to zoom in so Negative Lab can do its thing. So we're gonna crop in these film borders. There is a function inside Negative Lab to do this automatically, but because this is kind of a weird sized photo, I had to do it manually for it to work. So we'll hit the enter key here. Oh, and to pull up the crop tool, you will press the R key. I forgot to mention that. Now that we've cropped the image, let's pull up Negative Lab Pro by holding Ctrl-Alt-N. That brings up Negative Lab Pro. We are just going to double check that this is a negative. That is correct. The source is from a digital camera and the color model is black and white. Pre-saturation, you can just leave on default. Let's click on Convert Negative. Negative Lab will do its thing and boom, boom, boom. Let's click Apply and come back to the crop tool by pressing the R key once again. And we are going to drag these edges out here so we can see our whole photo and the film borders. And hit the enter key. Wonderful. Here's our image. This is pretty cool. Ilford FP4 is a film that was made in, hold on, let's check real quick because I don't know. Okay, here we go. It originated as fine grain. Here we go, we'll highlight it. It originated as fine grain panchromatic film in 1935. So the Corvette that we are working on here is a little bit newer. This is a 60s era Corvette and FP5 was made in the 30s, so it doesn't quite line up time-wise, but it is a very cool picture. This was taken in 2023, as we can see up here, but looks very timeless with FP4. So let's get back to actually editing. To start, let's straighten this photo by jumping down to the transform tool, and we're going to click on the guided tab, and we get this little cross in a box. And if we come up to the top of the film border here and try to line that cross up with the edge of the film border and click and drag to the other side, this will help give us a straight line, or as straight as we can get. Lightroom will do its magic, and then we will come down and do this again at the bottom. Sometimes I use the tip of the cross like here, and sometimes I use the middle of the cross. It kind of depends on which one works better. Neither one is right or wrong, it's just whatever one works better for your particular image. Let's come up to the left side here and do the same thing, and as you start to adjust these, you'll see how that's lining up almost perfectly. The crop tool doing its thing. See, look at that. Perfectly straight. All right. I don't know how to close the guided transform tool other than by pressing the R key to bring up the crop tool. And then also because this image is a 6x6 and I scanned it weird, we need to rotate the image by holding the control key and the left bracket key. And that will rotate this so it looks not normal, but so we can zoom in a little bit and clean up our film borders. I am going to leave a little bit of an edge, but I'm not going to leave any of the frame counts or the FP4. Sometimes I do if it works, but this particular image is not going to look good. So just going to bring these borders in slightly, hit the enter key, hit control left bracket again, and just make some adjustments here. This needs to be a little thicker, a little thicker, a little thicker. Let's see what we got. We're gonna need this to be a little thicker. Sometimes these don't work out like you hope the first time. Sometimes these just don't cooperate. Keep hitting the T key. I don't want to do that. Control Z to undo, Control Z to undo. We're just going to leave it like that with this skinny on the bottom, skinny on the side, and a little bit thicker on the left side. Okay, now let's jump back into Negative Lab by pressing Ctrl-Alt-N. And we will run through this. So last time I did this conversion, I was running Negative Lab version 2.3. That's what was available at the time. This was back in sometime in 2023. Now it's 2025, end of the year, September. Let's see what happens if we jump to V3.1. I didn't really see much change. And if we go to version 1, there's no change. Lame. Sometimes that's the case. I'm gonna hit apply on this and just see what happens. And then jump back into Negative Lab and see if there's a difference if we go here. I can't tell the difference. So we'll just leave it on version 3.1. Run through these advanced settings quickly just to see if there's a difference, but I think if this isn't changing at the engine settings, that nothing else is going to change either. We're not going to worry about any of that. Sometimes those adjustments do quite a bit, sometimes they do not. This is one of the instances where not much is happening. Nothing's happening. Let's go back to the edit tab, and we can make some changes here. Let's just see what the lab soft looks like quickly. Lab hard is way too much contrast. How does linear look? Too flat. Linear gamma. Not bad, but it's more exposing for the outside part of the photo in the back that we don't really need. That does make this part look nice and not so blown out, but it gives us too much shadow in the foreground. Oh my gosh, I have a yawn. Okay. Linear deep just for fun. Nah. Let's just stick with lab standard. That's a nice happy medium. I wonder if we hit this black clip a couple times. What does that do? Not really seeing anything going on here. This is weird. Whoa, now we got blue. Okay, so stuff is happening, just not a lot. I'm struggling here today, guys. Okay, so I'm gonna just add a little bit of sharpening. Actually, that's already been done because this photo has been converted before. So that is all we will do here in negative lab. So I'm going to click apply, or you can hit enter. Now we're going to send this image to Photoshop by right clicking on the image and clicking on edit in and sending to Photoshop. And now that we're in Photoshop, we are going to hit the W key once again, except for this time, we'll be bringing up the quick selection tool. And what we're going to do is click and drag inside the photo. And what this is going to do is allow us to select just the inside part of the photo and not the borders, so we can make our adjustments without affecting how the borders look. Photoshop generally does a pretty good job if there's lots of contrast, which most of this image has. However, we've got this section here with the tire, and we have the grill here that may cause some issue. So I'm gonna just zoom in and carefully do this. Sometimes when you zoom in, it helps Photoshop figure out what needs to be selected and what does not need to be selected. And we have just a small portion that is unselected, but this is easy to fix. If we zoom in a little bit and hold the Alt key and then click and drag, this will do the opposite selection. So we are moving away from the right side of the film border to the left side, just like how we want. And look at that. Oh, I need to actually let go of the Alt key now. If you make a mistake, you can press Ctrl Z to correct that mistake. Oh, look at that. Boom. Sweet. Actually was a lot better than I thought. If we hit Ctrl 0, that will zoom us back out, and just double check your image to make sure you haven't missed any selections on the inside. And I missed two things here on this little gate, and then I also missed the A on the Utah and the license plate. Now that the inner part of the image is selected, we can come up to the filter menu and click on Camera Raw. This is basically Lightroom in Photoshop. Why am I doing this in Photoshop instead of Lightroom? Because the sliders aren't backwards here in Photoshop, as well as we're working on an actual raw file. If we were to do this with negative lab, the file would be converted to a TIFF, which is still high quality, but there is some data loss. So doing it this way in Photoshop, we're working with the original raw file. There's no data loss. We have maximum information to work with to get the most flexibility out of our edits. So with that said, let's jump over to the edit panel. I'm going to come down to the curves, and I like to adjust the sliders. I'm not a big fan of doing this. I don't like pulling on the slider and trying to make S curves. I don't like how that works. So let's just undo all my mess here. But I do like using sliders. They're more precise. At least I think they're more precise. So let's start with bumping up the darks a little bit. Why am I doing this? So we can deepen the blacks, but still have nice detail. So I'm actually going to push this down just a touch, and we're going to deepen up those shadow areas, push up lights just a little bit, and same with the highlights. I don't want to go too crazy here because this is pretty well exposed, but I do like things to pop, and deepening your shadow areas and bumping up the highlights a little bit really helps to make some nice separation and make things pop. Let's jump back up to exposure. This doesn't really need to be adjusted, so I'm just going to add 0.02. We will add some contrast in here. Highlights, we don't need a ton, so we're just going to do 2. Shadows, I am going to bring them back a little bit. Maybe not. Let's do +2. Whites +2. Blacks FP4 just to really get nice deep blacks. Texture, we'll add a little bit here. This is the standard go-to, +3 and +2, just for a little bit of a sharpening effect, but not like crazy, not the HDR effect. Ugh, too much. Look how soft this image is. Whoa. Okay, we'll add a little bit of dehaze here. That'll help deepen the blacks further without making things muddy. All right, and we'll come down to detail, add a little more sharpening. I'll change this number to 15 and change the detail to 20. All right, let's take a look at our before and after here. We can do that by pressing the P key. So not much of a change here. This image was pretty well exposed, but we did deepen the blacks, make the mids and the highlights pop. There's just nice separation between everything now, and it looks very good. Let's go to OK. Close the camera raw filter. If you need to make adjustments to your film border, you can hold Control-Shift-I and that will select the inverse. So if we were to go back into camera raw filter, you could darken your film border if the edges are light. Sometimes that happens. If your light seals are good and the camera's dialed in, shouldn't be an issue, but if you do need to correct that, that is how you do that. For now, I'm gonna hit Control-D to deselect, and then this photo needs to be dusted. I have a copy of this photo already dusted. I'm thinking I'm gonna like this version of the edit a little better, so I will run through and do that quickly. If you'd like to see a full video on how I dust these film scans, I will link that in the description below. So once you've dusted your photo, how do we send this back to Lightroom? Super easy. If you press Control-S, that saves the photo and sends a copy back to Lightroom. We can check this by jumping back into Lightroom. We can tell this is an edited version of the photo. Maybe. That's kind of funny. I have another version of the photo that I made a video for a couple years ago. It's a Kodak Gold, same setup, same shot, same car. So I guess I got confused with that. So that is our edited photo. The original is this one here. Not a ton of difference, but there is slight difference. This exposure was done well, so there wasn't much to edit. So that is how you edit FP4 in Lightroom, Negative Lab Pro, and Photoshop. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Oh my gosh, I'm a yawn. Okay.